Hello ladies and gentlemen, from Slide Nerd, this is Vivs here. What's up? In this video, we are going to talk about the fragment lifecycle in Android. What are the different methods involved in the fragment lifecycle? What are the different methods involved in the activities lifecycle? How does the activity get notified of the events in the fragments lifecycle? How does the fragment communicate its messages through the activities lifecycle, and so on? So in this video, let's take a dig at each of these. Now, what is the process of making a fragment? There are four steps involved. Step 1, extend the fragment class. Step 2, provide the appearance in XML/Java. Now, this is just like giving a layout to the fragment, which you would do with activities all the time. Remember, each fragment is entitled to have its separate layout, but again, it's not necessary. You can have a fragment which is not seen by the user, which means it does not require a layout. Step 3, override the onCreateView method to link the appearance. This is where you tell the fragment that your appearance is contained in this XML file or here in the Java code. Again, we will see in detail how the onCreateView method works and how you're supposed to override this. Step 4, use the fragment in XML and Java. Now, this is probably the only place where Java is the preferred approach compared to XML. The reason, you create the fragments dynamically at runtime in Java and you perform the essential swapping. But if you use the fragment in XML, it is statically bound to the user interface in which you have defined the fragment. Again, we will see these approaches: static creation of fragments, dynamic creation of fragments, what are the different issues involved with them in the upcoming videos. The fragment object is not as simple as saying fragment f equals to new fragment. It exists in different states. So let's see what those states are. The fragment object exists as a Java object when you say fragment f equals to new fragment. But at this point, it has not been linked with the activity inside which it is existent. So once you attach the fragment to an activity, then it exists as a Java object plus attached with an activity. Even at this point, the fragment may or may not be visible to the user. So the third state of the fragment is obviously when it is a Java object which is fully initialized, it is attached to an activity, and it is also visible to the user on the screen. So these are the three different states of the fragment. Obviously, we will talk about these states in greater detail as we go further in my videos and my playlist. Some of the methods in the fragment are responsible for fragment creation. One method, which is your onResume, is capable of notifying the user that the fragment is running, and some of the methods are responsible for fragment shutdown. So what are these methods? Let's go and take a look. Let's talk about the different methods involved in the creation of a fragment. Now, since the fragment is contained inside the activity, it links very closely to the life cycle of an activity. So we need to take a combined look at both their life cycles to understand what happens when inside the fragment. First, you have the onCreate method being called, where the activity is able to define its appearance using the setContentView method. The fragment has its onAttach method being called. This is the place where you get a reference to this activity inside which the fragment is about to be placed. You can use that reference, store it somewhere, so that later you can call system service or call findView by ID using that reference. The onAttach fragment is called on the activity to notify the activity that there was a fragment who was attached recently. Now, the onCreate method is called inside the fragment. Now, what is the difference between the onCreate of the activity and the onCreate of a fragment? Pretty simple. Inside the activity's onCreate, you use the setContentView and link the appearance. In the onCreate of the fragment, you are not supposed to access UI elements of the fragment or of the activity, whatever. The reason is the activity's onCreate may execute before the fragment's onCreate, or it may execute during the fragment's onCreate method. So you have no way of knowing whether the activity's view hierarchy was linked using the setContentView method or not, and hence trying to access the UI elements here will probably give you an empty object or a null object, and that is going to run your app into a crash. On the other hand, you can use the onCreate in the fragment, initialize long running operations. Then you have the on create view method that gets called. Now this is the place where you link the layout file of a fragment to its object. It is just like the activity. It has its own layout. You just need to link it, and that is done inside the on create view method. Then there's the on activity created method. Now this method is called after the activity has finished its on create method. This method gives us an idea that the activity has finished its on create. That means the UI is initialized and ready to use, and that means you can access UI elements in the fragment through the on activity created method. The on start is called in the activity. Again, I have explained this in my activity lifecycle video. If you guys are new to this, please go back and check that out. The on start is called in the fragment, which is not much different. On resume is called. On resume gets called. There is one small thing that needs to be noticed. For multiple fragments, these methods are called multiple times. That means for every fragment, there will be a on create view being called, on attach fragment being called, and on activity created will notify that the on create has been executed in the activity. So this is the sequence of operations needed for creating a fragment. Now let's talk about the different methods that get called when the fragment is about to be destroyed. Let's say the user is exiting the application or something like that. So first you have the on pause being called, then you have the activities on pause being called. There is no difference between both. The on save instance state gets called in the fragment first, and you have the on save instance state in the activity. Now on save instance state gives you a bundle object inside which you can store certain values so that you can use them later when you get back inside your fragment again. Again, I have talked about the on save instance state and on restore instance state separately in a video on my playlist. If you guys are new to this, please go back and check that video out. There's the on stop being called in the fragment, on stop that gets called in the activity, on destroy view, and this method on destroy view is called after the fragment's view hierarchy is no longer accessible, which means so far the fragment existed as both a Java object along with its own layout file, but after this point, after the on destroy view, it will exist as a Java object, yes, but its view hierarchy, which is defined in its own XML file, is not accessible. Then the on destroy gets called in the fragment. Now after this point, the fragment is completely destroyed. It exists as a Java object to the activity, yes, but you can do nothing with it. Then there is the on detach method being called. On detach is the part where the fragment which was tied to the activity so far is actually untied from the activity, and after this point it's not associated with anything. So in this video we have talked about the different methods involved in the fragments lifecycle. In the next two videos we'll be talking about the fragments lifecycle first individually, and then the fragments lifecycle coupled and combined with the activities lifecycle to understand the effect of what happens when. In the meantime, if you guys like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel, comment, let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next bit. Have a nice day.